To stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. And before we say the pledge, we have three special guests tonight. We have Banks and Wright and Thomas, and they're going to join us. And they want to follow in their dad's footsteps with public service, but please don't follow in his footsteps with other things he's doing. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The first item is approve the minutes from the November 10, 2020 meeting. Do we have any comments? Bye.
Had enough.
Oh, yeah. I don't want to say the boring stuff. Anyone have any comments, questions, or corrections? And if not, is there a motion to approve? I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Robert, did you hear that? Ace motion and Cheryl seconded. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye. Yes, I got it. Thank you.
And Leanne is with us, right?
Yes, she does not have her camera on though.
Okay, thank you. So we'll move to agenda item A. To consider a conditional use permit for the Surf Club Inc. to allow for a second level deck extension on the north and east corner of the primary structure zone P-C. And is there a correction to that? This isn't on the primary structure, is it?
No, this is the one on the ocean front.
Right, so it's the
Pavilion.
auxiliary building or whatever. So if we could maybe correct that,
Okay.
that it's not primary.
Yes. Okay.
So I think we'll hear from Tony first.
Chairman Smith and members of the planning board, this is a conditional use permit for 1 East Mallory Street. This is for the surf club for the pavilion on the ocean front. We did receive this application on October the 29th, and it's, the property owner is the surf club, and they have appointed attorney Joe Taylor to serve as the authorized agent, and he's going to speak on behalf of the CUP for the surf club. The applicant has applied for an amendment to the existing CUP to modify the existing pavilion currently located on the oceanfront at 1 East Mallard Street. We're going to be adding a new deck, uncovered deck area there on the east side of the existing building. And the deck expansion will be around approximately 900 square feet. It's probably going to be a little bit less than that. The Surf Club is located in the PC Private Club zoning district, where private clubs are considered a permitted conditional use. If you remember, some of these on the board may have looked at these existing conditional use permits on May 11th, 2015. If you remember that time, they added a metal roof over existing 52 by 34 deck. That was closer to the street side there. And then on last year, about the same time now, November 14, 2019, the Board of Aldermen approved an amendment to the conditional use permit for 1 East Mallory Street to add bathrooms, if you remember, an expanded deck area on the west side. When commercial businesses add more deck area, there's no additional parking required for the bathroom deck addition or anything like that. If they were doing space, it would be. But one of the things that Planning Board and Board of Aldermen have to look at is the 155.5.32 performance standards in reviewing the site plan. The Planning Board and Board of Aldermen shall consider. You see A through H there, different things they have to look at there, and the attorney will address those. We did reach out to department heads. There were no comments on this. Public notice, this meeting ran on November 20th in the Star News. We did post a sign on the site for the November 20th meeting. And also we had to send out adjacent property owner letters. We're sending out also. As far as I know, we didn't get any feedback at all from any property owners so far. Staff's recommendation is that planning board for a favorable recommendation for the approval of amendment to the existing conditional use permit, 1 East Mallard Street, and this would be for the pavilion and oceanfront. And as far as attachment, you have your conditional use permit application and plans. And if I can, Robert, can you pull up the site plan and maybe, or do I need to pull it up?
Yes, I'll share that.
Okay, this is just an overhead view. This is the actual pavilion here. This is the bathrooms that we were approved a few years ago. Last year here, the metal building, the main buildings out here on North Lumina. This is what we're looking at here. This is an existing deck. They're adding an existing deck here, approximately 35 feet by 12 feet. And this is another 35 by 12. So this side here, here's the wooden walkway to the ocean front. So that's the section. You have another slide, Robert? And this is the same thing, was in red is the highlighted area there, uncovered decking. So if you got any questions, I'll be glad to try to answer.
The new deck is gonna be 2 steps down.
I've heard it's gonna be a little bit of a difference there. It won't be the same.
Jim, I've got a question.
Yes, sir.
Tony, what's not clear to me is why this comes before the planning board. And I think I heard part of the answer was, as a commercial entity, it has to have some sort of approval, because otherwise it just seems weird that a deck would require some
Yep.
specific
Since this-
attention.
Yeah, since this is a private club, and they're only permitted by a conditional use permit, so they have to come forward, since it's not a permitted use, they have to come forward whenever they do something to their building, like expand a deck or something like that. So they have to come to the planning board for that.
Thank you. And a follow-up question to that is, it doesn't appear that there's any kind of setback issues here, but can you briefly just say, what are the setbacks for this zoning?
He's looking it up in his manual.
Yeah, this is one big parcel of property.
Yeah.
Deal. The setbacks for a PC private club, let's see, 15 feet for the front. And side yards are only 7.5 feet there. So those are the setbacks.
So just for a point of reference, on the front of this parcel is on Mallard Street?
No, the front, since it is Mallard Street, that would be the front. Yes, sir. That's
Yeah, it
correct.
would be, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
In the packet, I'm confused, this,
Yeah,
the proposed building expansion.
that's an old drawing.
That's
I'm
the old
assuming.
drawing.
I'm
That's the one
like
we
you,
did
I
for the
thought the
restrooms.
same thing.
Yeah, it's the same drawing that we use for the bathrooms.
And see, what was in our packet didn't have what was drawn up there.
The screen and red.
Yeah, so what he has drawn up there is not on our page in the packet.
Okay, but on page 5 is that red
Yeah,
section.
it's the page,
Right.
page 5.
Yeah.
We were looking at this one.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Page 5.
Yeah, this one.
Page 5 is,
Oh, that was in our packet.
Yeah, but what,
I
that,
know that.
yeah.
And so when did, I love Pat Bristow,
Yeah.
I've asked you these questions before, but when did we stop pulling the 60 feet from the first stable line of vegetation and went to, is the static line the 1980 photo line?
yes, the static line, you have the option of one or the other, yes.
So if you pull from the first stable line of vegetation all day long, plenty of room. Is that-
Yes, there's plenty of growth there, yes.
But you have the option between the 1980 photo, the static line and the first stable line of vegetation.
That's correct, yes.
That always confuses.
Tony, is that something that you can show on that graphic that you were using your pointer with, relative to what Ace was saying?
If Robert could go back to the site plan, Robert?
Is it on that one? It did say that one?
Yeah, 1 second.
Yeah, it must be that one.
It's actually on page 17, Neil, in your packet also.
17. Yeah, Yeah, I've got 17, but I can't really tell which line was referenced by Ace in that particular comment.
Neil, when I mentioned the 1980 photo line, that apparently the nomenclature has just changed to the static line. And
Okay,
I'll let Tony take it. He knows it way better than I do.
Here, let me get my. right here.
okay. And so just to clarify then, the point you were making, Ace, is that that's the line that gets held? The static
Why
line?
let Tony take over because I might confuse you.
Gotcha.
This
Thank
is.
you.
It's that 2031, 2030.34.
Now, this is I think this would be the first line of vegetation here. This is the property line here. This would be maybe the
Static line.
That's it.
static line or the 60 feet and the 120. But the open decks are allowed in the CAMA setback. And we have applied for a CAMA permit also for this.
So there are no oceanfront setback issues whatsoever.
Is this considered minor or major camp?
This is just a minor CAMA line.
Any other question for Tony at this time? We'll have another shot at him. And then I assume we'll hear from Mr. Taylor next. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the planning board. We thank you all very much for being here tonight to listen to our presentation. This is an application for an amendment to an existing conditional use permit. My name is Joe Taylor. I reside at 22 Palmetto Drive, Riceville Beach. I am the attorney for the Surf Club. I'm also a member of the Surf Club. And with me tonight are Mr. Louis Burney, who's president of the Surf Club, Keith Logard, who is the manager, and Gordon Garrison, who's our development manager. One of the reasons that it's important for us to ask for this amendment is the fact that it helps us greatly with social distancing. We have, with this deck is a very small addition. It's only 900 square feet. That's all it is. And it adjoins our existing deck. To service our folks on that, let's just take the east side, for example. We can only put 2 tables for 4 folks. So to be able to social distance and to protect our members and give them an enjoyable experience, we need just a little more space. Same reason that we came to you last year to add the restrooms upstairs. A lot of our members are elderly, they need special protection. You gave that to us in the additional bathroom, and now we're asking you to give us this extra space so that we can operate to protect all of both our elderly members and the children of our younger members. When we look at the Harvard study, it looks like we're going to be having the social distance till at least 2022. And so it's very important for us to be able to have this extra space to be able to do that. None of this will increase any of the traffic for the neighborhood. The volume of the use of the facility doesn't change, it doesn't increase, and no additional parking is required. There are no additional services required from the town. It has no effect on the view of any of our adjoining neighbors. This is a huge piece of property, and our nearest neighbor is way away. We don't have any effect on anybody's view. We don't have any effect on impervious surface. We don't change that at all. Has no effect at all. And the request meets all the performance standards of 155.5.3.2 of the Wrightsville Beach Code. Meets every one of them. There are no setback issues because we are a great distance from any of our adjoining properties. The police department, the fire department, public works department had no concerns about this requested amendment. The planning staff has recommended you forward a favorable recommendation to the Board of Aldermen. And we are very confident that our application for the amendment is in compliance with the conditional use standards of 155.4.4.E of the Wrightsville Beach Code. Those are the sections A and E. And if you remember, they require that any application that we make does not, it won't be detrimental or endanger the public health or safety of welfare. Well, obviously, I doesn't do that. It won't injure the enjoyment of anybody's adjoining property. We certainly don't do that. And you see the site plan and the explanation of what we're doing. It won't affect the exterior architectural values of our amendment will not affect the neighborhood adversely and the structures adversely. And you can see from the drawings, it's just a simple addition to an existing deck. That's all we're doing. But it's very important to us and very important to the members to give them a protective use. There are no effects on the roads or parking or drainage or facilities. That's another thing you have to consider. We have that. There are no effects on impervious surface. We do not affect the impervious surface. This facility does not increase it at all, stays the same. And it conforms to all the regulations in our district. And it's completely consistent with your land use plan. So those requirements of A through I that we have to show you, they're in your application, they're in the record, but what we've talked to you about tonight clearly shows that all of those are met, and we would ask that you give us a favorable recommendation to the Board of Law. And we have anybody here that can answer any questions you need.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions from Joe or for Joe? I just have a couple in general. I'm assuming when Glenn said no comment that he's good with this additional square footage, there's enough access points, stairways down.
Yes.
That's not gonna trip another stairway requirement or anything, so he's good with that? And that's really the only question I had. Does anybody else in the group want to speak? I think we have to open it up and then close it.
Yes, I would, Jim. I suppose these questions are more for Tony, so if you want to close some part of this and go into discussion.
Yeah, I'll close it. I just want to make sure, Robert, there's nobody that's online, is there, from the public?
Not that is asking to speak.
Okay, great. Thank you. So we'll close that portion.
Oh, I'm sorry, Chairman Smith, 1 second. There is one person dialing in with a telephone. If you would unmute your phone by hitting *6. If not.
My phone or my screen?
Must be.
It's harder than the person dialing in.
*6 is to unmute, and if they don't unmute, I'll just we can just go on.
Oh, my unmute on this one. I think I've got it.
Looks that way.
Like every screen is different. My phone is different from my
I should have
iPad.
kept the 7-year-old.
I know, I figured it out.
Didn't know exactly what to do.
Be done.
Well, no one's unmuted, so.
You are showing me as unmuted now?
I think he's trying to talk to whoever's called in. Nancy Fay is on there. Is he talking
Well,
about?
there's someone who's actually dialed in with a landline or possibly a cell phone. But they're muted. I didn't know if they wanted to speak or not. They didn't say whether they did or not.
It's the 274. Okay. Tap the screen and you can see the participants. Now go second from the eight. Yeah.
There we go.
tells you
That's
everybody.
gone.
Now they're talking.
Y'all may be talking to me.
Oh, okay, it's
Just Leanne.
Okay, listen, my location is not ideal. So I'm just listening to everybody, but I'm here.
So you're on the 274 number?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so did you have any comments, questions, or anything so far?
No, I do not.
Okay. So where were we?
I think Neil had a
Neil had a
question, I
question,
think.
yeah.
Okay, thank you. Tony, in looking at 155.3.2, that whole gamish, it talks about a number of elements that are relevant to all this, but I don't see that as part of the CUP filing. But what we just heard was that, oh, this meets all the criteria. So I just want to make sure that criteria like lighting and landscaping, et cetera, are somehow addressed. If not here, then when?
Well, I think in the scope of the big project, it probably was, but with this deck addition, I don't know if we would, it's close to the ocean. I don't know if you'd want any lighting, but I think they can address, if you have a question about something, they may can address that, Neil.
Well, yeah, my concern would be more lighting is not good, necessarily that as it gets closer to the ocean. So
Right.
I just wanted to understand how, because it talks about how the planning board needs to, weigh in on that issue. So,
Right.
but there's nothing for us to talk to here because nothing's been presented about it.
Well, and part of that is correct, but on these amendments, when it's something basic like a uncovered deck addition, probably some of these things would not apply to something like that, but they could address some of these things if you have some issues with it.
Joe, could you address that for us, please?
Yes, there is no lighting change.
No lighting proposed? Okay.
I understand now, this is only 12-foot addition, so we're only going 12 feet closer in any direction. And it's completely open, it's a deck. And so there is no additional lighting. All of those criteria were met in the original conditional use permit. Only the ones that pertain to the amendment were the ones we addressed, because those are the ones your ordinance requires us to address. We are required to address A through I, which is what we did this evening. All the rest of those were met with the original application.
So would y'all be okay if we made that a condition of approval, that there's no additional lighting? Because we are getting kind of close to the turtles.
Yeah, that's fine.
They're closer to the turtles.
That's fine.
Thank you. Thank you. Great. Good point, Neil.
Just for, but just for a clarification, the previous improvements or additions were on the other side of the building, if I understand, not on the ocean side, or am I mistaken?
No, there was a original conditional use permit for that pavilion, but before the bathrooms, like maybe that building's been here for maybe 10 to 15 years now.
2006.
2006. Okay, so the original pavilion was built in 2006 under that conditional use permit. And when you come back and do amendments, you could you can put conditions on this, such as no more lighting on the ocean deck. So you can do that.
You look at the buffering, would it require more buffering? Probably not there, because the deck is elevated up 8-10 feet probably, so it would be very difficult to do something like that, so, and there's no signs there, so.
Okay. And I agree with what Jim suggested, and thank you.
Any other questions, concerns, or comments from the board?
Are you get ready to call for a vote?
I was gonna call for someone to make a motion, yeah.
I'll just make a comment, you know, it's something I've always said with the private clubs, and as a citizen of the beach community, I just really support the private clubs. You know, I mean, it adds a use for such a large user base to come on the island. And that pavilion is so unique. It's just like a wonderful setting. It's something special for Wrightsville Beach. So I can't see any reason not to support, you know, this request and send favorable recommendation to y'all. And that's my comment.
So I would ask that whoever wants to make the motion, that they do change it to, what did we call that building? It's not the pavilion, not the primary structure. And that I think we all kind of gave a nod to asking them to make it a condition that no more lighting is added. So anyone want to make a motion?
I'll make that motion that we permit the expansion of the pavilion deck as presented with the recommendation not to add any more additional lighting to that side, the ocean side. Is that covered?
I'll second.
Okay, Robert, David motion and Cheryl seconded. And do you want a roll call vote? Robert?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we'll just go down the line and
Cheryl Kabala, aye.
David Carl, aye.
Jim Smith, aye.
Thomas Pepper, aye.
Karen King, aye.
Neil Briggy, aye.
Leanne Joyner, aye. Leanne Joyner, aye.
And Neil said aye.
Yes.
So that's unanimous.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
very much. You lucked out, Gordy. You didn't even have to talk.
I was ready, Ace.
Aye.
I'll see y'all. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Next item is any old business? Anybody have any old business?
David, you rolling off the board?
Yes.
Oh.
I guess the squad next year.
After the January meeting.
Yeah, everybody, we'll have another meeting in January, in February, we start.
In February, it's fresh and new. See you.
You'll be back.
Probably I'll ask to be back, whether I get back in or not. That's up to the board.
Need to question them.
Good, so you're gonna reapply after you. Good.
Hey, how long have you been on the planning
I
board?
think it's every bit of 10 years. At least.
Wow.
Since sand was invented.
Yeah, well, not as long as David. David, what are you at now?
I don't know, a long time.
Long time, man.
This is my third or fourth roll.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Wow. He doesn't want to follow in his father's footsteps and be an alderman, so
Don't, no way.
perennial.
I think that Jack got my heart. I shouldn't say that.
So Cheryl and Leanne, you're gonna reapply?
Yeah, right.
Good, good, I hope so.
Weird to think a decade's gone by.
Any other business from chairperson, board members, or staff? Tony, can you enlighten us about what we've got coming up?
Well, there's going to be a CUP, is probably all I can say. They haven't applied yet, so technically, we probably we'll say something, but we'll probably have another CUP come in with the business on the beach probably in January, I'm thinking. I have not got the application yet. So.
Gotcha. Their motion to adjourn?
Oh, I'll make the motion.
One second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Bye.
Thank you,
Come
Leanne.
on, Neil.
Good night, guys.
Thank y'all. Happy holidays.
I do not need a roll call for that.
Okay.
I have that trip back.
Pretty
Last
pretty
one was
much.
pretty quick too.
All right.
Last one was pretty.
Yeah, last one was pretty quick, but I think this one needed.
Yeah, this one was definitely fun. I like the.
13 minutes.
The ones
You don't
that
see
go
me
to
very
9 and
often.
10 o'clock, Kenny, you can just talk to me.